Hey everybody, it's Bust with Battles with Bust number 427, and today we're doing battle with Teemo Jax Returno Wrench. And so another iteration of the Returno Wrench decks. This one was brought forth by Infini Patrons. If you are familiar with that Vayne Jarvan Freljord deck that we love to play so much on our channel, he was the inventor, creator of that deck, and this is one of his newer offerings here in this Heart of the Huntress balance patch. And so you might be more familiar with the Jinx flavors of the Returno Wrench deck. It's the one that's much more common on the ladder, much more aggressive also. And so the kind of main differences to me between the Jinx version and the version that we're going to be playing here today is the Jinx version plays a bunch of bad units, right? There's no one arguing about the strength of the 2/1 cycle unit for 1 mana, whatever that's called. It's really slipping my mind. And then even worse so in terms of stat to cost ratio, you have the Boom Baboon in the 2-drop space. And so that deck, while it does have much more aggressive offerings, it's able to get onto the board much faster. It's very easy to see that a lot of the cards in that deck just aren't super high quality. And so if you're playing through one of these games to where the Returno Wrench just doesn't show up, or if you don't have the right components of your deck drawn in the correct order, then the deck kind of falls flat. If you're just running all of these terrible cards out there, it's much easier to just deal with a 2/1 for 2 mana than it is to have some of the much larger Mecha Yordles that we'll see coming out of this deck. And so that's the kind of big thing to me as we look to this Bandle City Jax offering, is to, why would I ever want to play this deck over the Jinx version? It's the cards are just much higher quality, right? Squeaker is a reasonable unit on its own. It's not surprising to see it get up to 4 and 5 attack while also activating the rest of our deck. And then the same thing kind of applies with the Arena Promoter. A 4/3 tough is a pretty reasonable stat line on a card that generates another card. And then, of course, we still have the more standard Weaponsmith style bros that are, of course, the combat masters between the Innovative Blacksmith and the Combat Cook. And so we don't have to play these games to where we just have those bad rando 2/1s. And we also avoid some of those games to where we get 6 units on the board and then we have 3 or 4 units in our hand, and we can't even upgrade the units on the board because all the Garbo cards in our hand are a bunch of 2/1s. And so it's a very interesting space in that sense that, we give up some of that aggression, some of that raw early game power in favor of some of these just higher quality cards. After that, the cards are going to play out fairly similarly. The Electro Harpoon, a really high quality removal spell we see across all of the decks. The Parts Made Whole is a fantastic addition and complement to the Returno Wrench, but the cards that we also get out of the Weaponsmith package are going to be the Entrancing Lure, a very powerful combat trick, especially in the sense that a lot of the Mecha Yordles will be generating are just overstated, right? The Smash and Dash is a 4/4 for 3 mana. Even if it doesn't have an equipment on it, you can particularly find some good interactive combats if you need to. And then Fish Fight, just the classic strong removal spell that we see out of the Weaponsmith decks. And so, interesting stuff. This is what we're going to be doing battle with today. Let's go ahead, jump on in, see what we can do. Didn't even talk about the Floofs in there, the Furious Fluffs, the Fluff and Floofer. It's a reasonable piece of top end. It doesn't do the game finishing as well as you would see out of a Jinx, but it does give you more pun intended impact than you would typically get out of the Jinx, given that you have the potential to maybe give 4 or 5 impacts and then also give like 10 points of stats across the board. But nonetheless, reasonable enough start here. We'll hang on to the Teemo, the Jax, and the Squeaker. I'd like to look for a little bit either A, value. So if we get a Returno Wrench, we can drop that Squeaker quick. Or B, just something that we can have a more protected board for this Jax. And so drawing the secondary copy of Jax is kind of interesting. It should get the job done for us here. We're up against Gnar Nidalee. They do play things like Drop the Bomb, which would be capable of taking Jax down, but that's usually their only removal spell that can deal the 2 damage, and they typically want to play an Ambush, or they want to play a Conchologist on the second turn. And so I think that there's a pretty good chance that we get into the 3rd turn of the game with our Jax being protected. So he does have the removal spell for Teemo. not a big deal, right? We are not playing a Teemo deck. This is a Returno Wrench Impact deck that happens to have Teemo in it. Teemo just a early game evasive unit. He carries the Yordle keyword. He does a lot in terms of activating things in our deck, but we're not going to come out here and look to actually finish off the game with Teemo. We're not playing some kind of Sump Monument deck that's looking to really maximize what the Puff Caps could do. All right, gonna have to take it a little bit slow here. I wanted to keep our counter strike up in case he tried to attack. Now the combat cook was just the absolute perfect draw. We get to continue playing on curve. It's gonna have almost enough attack to get our Jax flipped, but I kind of suspect we're gonna be playing a counter strike this combat, and that is gonna get our Jax up to that 12 damage he needs to flip. And so we'll see. It's kind of a scary block putting a thing like a Chief Knack attack in front of Jax. He just gets smoked if we do have a catch or another combat trick, and so wasn't surprised to see the Knack attack not want to get involved in combat, but Shadows in the brush rolling through. It's kind of a different story. I like seeing this big investment that the opponent's making. You know, if he flips into Nidalee or something here, it's not that big of a deal. But we are getting him to have to invest quite a bit of mana, quite a bit of cards onto this board.
1,000 years of battle, and I'm just warming up.
All right, not bad. More Shadows in the brush. So scary these days. So many, so many frightening units running around. And oh boy, another counter strike. This Jax is going to be popping off. And so what I kind of see in this space is I'm fairly okay with just kind of throwing away the combat cook and then loading up the big equipment onto Teemo next turn. It's just a much more reasonable way to actually get damage done on this board. And so we will look to take this block with the combat cook. Looks like it's gonna need to go in front of the Pocket Cup here, and then this counter strike is gonna get the big takedown on Nidalee. I dig it. Alright, so here comes the Teemo. He's safe from this perilous pastry right now, and then we can open up with the Fix Him 5000 to hopefully give him the rest of the protection he needs to survive this turn. Now, we need to see what opponent does. This is a fairly safe attack right now. If he spends too much mana, we can come in and just drop the Squeaker, and then still have mana to Lightning Rush afterwards, or if we hit one of the smaller Mecha Yordles, we can just go ahead and put it on the board. So I was going to say, if we find Smash and Dash, that would be the kind of preferable one, since all of his units die in combat to this. You can look to take the support, the Mecha Forcer there, but I think I would really only be interested in it in this spot if it was going to be enough to push our Teemo in for lethal. Alright, that's not quite where we're at, so I think the Smash and Dash will be quite good here. So far, so lethal. Let's see if that Quicksand comes in just to prevent the lethal. I'm all on board with that. If he has a Quicksand, you can look to like Quicksand the Jax and take away his Overwhelm. But this is okay. Got him to 4. His board is gone. Got the old ferocious Floofs ready to come in, grant those impacts. I think we're looking pretty good. Tycoon, you're a little bit too slow.
Coin and carnage. There's nothing better.
Opponent says, that's too much. You fluffed me too good, bro. Alright, GG. And so, yeah, if you're one of our daily followers, you've really been missing out on these sweet daily bust videos. I think we should be back on track as far as getting the daily videos going. If you kind of missed out, I had some family coming in town that kind of took up the long portion of the weekend. It's always weird and awkward being like, hey family, I'm glad to see you. I'm going to take 2-3 hours a day and make some YouTube videos and stuff. And so, you know, I just didn't really have the time to kind of come in and do that kind of thing. But kind of preceding that, the weekend before, I lost our electricity. We had a big windstorm roll through Kansas City. I didn't have electricity from like Friday evening through Monday evening, and so the two things kind of combined really limited my ability to get these YouTube videos out here. But that's all in the past now. You know, hopefully things are okay. Kansas City's newest weather-related crisis is it's supposed to be like 105 fucking degrees all week, and so if we can make it through that one, if we don't have random brownouts or something, then I think we should be okay with the daily videos.
Armed and ready.
It was good though. It was nice refreshing times. Good having the fam come in. We got to do some touristy stuff. That's always good. We got to get some barbecue, which is always good as well. Always recommended if you make your way out this way. Just eat way too much meat and have a good time with that. Alrighty, we are up against Samira Fizz. This is a pretty reasonable target for our Electro Harpoon. And say if he comes at us with Samira, most definitely gonna drop it. But I think this is fine as well. As it stands on this board, he did play a stylish shot to hit the plunder on the Elegant Edge. So if he doesn't have another unit, then that stylish shot's just gonna be gone forever. And so, ooh, that was a pretty good all-out. I'll give you that one. Can't block the fearsome on the turn. I don't know why we're emoting. It wasn't the most. It wasn't really the most clever play in the world, but if that's what gets your jollies jiving, then more power to you. All right, so here I do like carrying on the fish fight into the next turn. The kind of downside to adding a squeaker to this board is it's still too small to block the Elegant Edge, and it's not going to find a spell fast enough to get up to 3, and then we can't play any of the Mecha Yordles. And so I think Jax is most certainly the add here. I'm not opposed to just blocking pretty much anything with Jax next turn, and so this isn't a space to where we have to be like, oh man, I have to keep my Jax well protected. You can just kind of throw him in front of this stuff. A bit unfortunate how this board is played out, though. I was hoping we'd be able to completely stop these combats. I guess we can with the Lightning Rush. I am pretty interested in preventing all of this damage. Alright, let's do it. He didn't drop the stylish shot this round, though, which is kind of interesting. I'm curious if that indicates that an Inferna is about to come up, or if he was just a little bit more interested in perhaps dropping a like Inferna or Barb Chain or something. But nonetheless, with these units, I'm kind of interested in the Shadow Tech Walker. I really like having access to this elusive. The downside to it is it's just a little bit too expensive. We can't get 2 units on the board, and so next turn we can't get both the Salty Spinner and the Jax down, and so I'm going to take the less blocky route, right? We can't block a Fizz next turn, but I think this is still going to get us a good combat, and then we still have a fish fight to maybe take a unit down with. The Entrancing Lure is interesting. Again, we don't have to target a unit with this. We don't have to draw a card off of the Entrancing Lure, so we could still look to add the Salty Spinner, but I mean, it's here with Jax. I think that this will end up just being safe enough. The bummer to this is our Squeaker doesn't get to attack into the Jagged Butcher. We even get to attack at all this turn. It wouldn't be ultra surprising to see another Pirouette come in. Powder Pandemonium. Alright, well,
Keep it moving,
that really shuts down our opportunities in terms of the Salty Spinner, so let's at least get Samira off of the board. No crazy shenanigans that opponent can do with adding more spells and the like, and so hopefully this really just kind of knocks the wind out of their sails. It's an odd, whatever that thing called. It was an odd one in the sense that, as an odd Powder Pandemonium in the sense that we weren't particularly aggressive for the round, right? I mean, he has one good block with the Jagged Butcher, and so I'm curious if he just has another one. right? That would make a fair bit of sense to see a second Powder Pandemonium come down. We would just lose the game at that point, but it's not crazy to think that that wouldn't be upcoming.
Time to get rich. Hope you stretched.
All right, you fought hard, Jax, but you're gonna make some more magic happen here soon. We hope we can discard this Light of Acacia to the Electro Harpoon if we need to. We can discard it to the Parts Made Whole, and then we can see where that takes us. I think we want to just be discarding it now. He's not adding anything to the board, and this is going to give us the extra stat spin on the Salty Spinner. Do we want to discard the Light of Acacia? We should just be discarding the Returno Wrench, right? Only the Squeaker is equipped here. We got Teemo and a Jax. All right, how do those dice spin? We got 3, what are we looking at here? Assuming you can't interact with us, we've got 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's a bit short of the lethal. We can get up to a little bit more with the Electro Harpoon, but we're going to have to add some dudes in. But, I mean, with him playing the 1...
Don't do memory. Do war,
playing
though.
the
You
1
in?
Powder Pandemonium, hopefully we
Yes,
don't have to deal
I
with
am
the second
in.
one. Pirouette with the damage to face. Okay.
Prepared for anything.
And a Swindle. Electro Harpoon's pretty good for him here. He does have to discard a card, which might be our kind of saving grace in the matter, but he can't play Fish Fighter and Trancing Lure, so I'm assuming he's picking up the Harpoon here. Probably taking down the old Squeaker. Now, fun thing to note with this board, you don't have to have a unit on board. Oh my god, he did have the second Pandemonium. So we're just dead at this point, right? We got to take the 6 from this one and then 2 from the Harpoon next turn. Alright, GG. Whew, that's just such a wild set of those. Not what I was really expecting them to roll through as. It's like, I mean, you know, it did make a bit of sense with that first one coming in. But I tried to convince myself that the second one didn't exist because he already played the first one. But I think once he played the first one, we were pretty aware that the second one was there. So it's tough though when we were just short on lethal. It's tough to imagine that you're like when you're in that spot that you can go into the next turn and then you know, kind of plan on surviving. I don't think if we win the game on that exact turn that we ever win the game. So I think you have to just kind of start adding units and hope that they aren't able to have that second Pandemonium. All right, next battle though, up against the old Heimerdinger Jayce. Let's see what we can do.
Reporting
He's got a dude, we've got a dude. Dudes everywhere. Why would you not attack here? That's the worst no attack of 2023. You heard it here first. Alright. I mean, I guess there's a world to where you don't want to have your Adaptron get hit by an Electro Harpoon or something, but I don't know, man. That one's as the kids would say, that one's a little sus to me. But alright, let's discard the Parts Made Whole. We're going to just look for the highest quality unit here. I wanted to find a Smash and Dash. It didn't turn up. We could take the Fury Horn Crasher. That's who I'm kind of immediately drawn to because it doesn't die to Mystic Shots, but we do also have a good Bouncer and Bolt Hook into the 1-3. I just don't think we're going to have the time for that kind of shenanigan. Like, I would really like to take this Adaptron off of the board, but he doesn't have to care about our Squeaker, right? He's like, oh, I can just block that with Reggie. We'll just go ahead and get this combat over with. And then, you know, if he really wanted to get that Squeaker off the board, he could have used his Mystic Shot, but I think this is just the safest unit we have in terms of the current board, and then also putting those stats on our units for the future turns. And the wrench turns up. That's like the only thing that makes this Like I was planning on just open attacking here because cards like Assembly Line and Shock Blast are both so good. But now that we pick up the wrench, let's just squeak in. The Mecha Forcer is looking for another 2-drop that we can add. So if he does end up having the Assembly Line or having a Shock Blast, then we're looking okay. And then if his thing is like Vengeance or Piercing Darkness, then we're looking fantastic. So, not bad.
I'll scout ahead.
I like looking fantastic. I don't know how you like to look, but it's one of my favorite looks. Say, damn, Bust, you looking good today. You looking fantastic. I bet y'all are looking good today, too. It's not just me, it's everybody out there. You got on your fresh shirt, got your hair done and stuff. I'm sure you're looking good. Oh, man, I did get... Speaking of looking good, I did get reminded. I was listening... I don't know what morning show I listened to in the radio. It's just, like, the station kind of defaults. Like, it was actually really strange that, like, the default station that I listened to back in West Virginia... Like, I moved to Kansas City, and it was still, they played the, like, same kind of music, and so I just stuck with it. I've been rolling with that same station for, like, the past decade. But I don't know what they're doing. Is the people that do, like, the Cart Narcs skit as to where the dude goes to the shopping centers and finds people that don't put their carts back in the little container thing, and then he just gives them a bunch of shit. It was their show. But it was like they went to Comic-Con and were just like making fun of people there. It's just like they're picking up these like random nerds that are clearly not the world's strongest communicators, and you know, you're just going to Comic-Con to have a good time, and then these dipshits roll in and just try to make fun of everybody. So I like, as it was happening, I had to tell my wife, I was like, this is why you know, if you like hear me talk about going to a Magic tournament and like really caring about like showering so you don't stink, and dressing where you're not out there in like a big titty anime girl t-shirt, just being like not super going out of your way to be fucking normal, but at least, you know, giving it kind of a shot. And it was like, this is exactly why. It was always like so brutal to be like for me, it was always the kind of thing with like dating. And so it's like you meet somebody new and it's like, well, what are you doing this weekend? And it was like, as I got older, I was like old enough to just kind of own it, to where it's like, oh, well, I'm going to go play in a Magic tournament this weekend. That's actually pretty cool. We have this game that we like to play. We go play competitively. You get to travel a bit. You get to see the sights and sounds of a new town, and you can kind of go from there. But like everyone's initial reaction was like, oh, you're playing Magic, huh? What kind of nerd are you? Why aren't you so greasy? Do you know that butt crack guy on Reddit? Like, it's just like completely obnoxious in the terms of that kind of thing. And so to like flip on the radio and it's just these people going to Comic-Con to make fun of nerds, I was like, oh, well, this is it. This is fucking spot on as to why I act this way, and like really have this hard focus on looking presentable and not attractive per se, but you know, not really like fueling the fire in terms of the look of that kind of scene. It's just like, this is fucking stupid. But I guess that's what drives the ratings, right? You find the easy target and you just go for it. Ugh. All right, though. I think this game's donezo's. I think we're good. It's kind of tough. I don't think we want to be all in on this Fury Horn Crasher. Like, it is... Maybe he can't. I was going to say, like, this is such a big source of our damage with this guy having Impact 3. I kind of want to spread it out. But his plays that would be able to stop this Impact 3 are going to be, like, Vengeances, right? And he's going to have to... like play a spell and a Vengeance. It's really tough to do in this spot. So I think we are going to get... You give Impact, right? Oh, you just give 2/2 and Spell Shield. That's probably still where we want it to be. We just need 2 more points of damage to finish this off. Alright. GG. Yeah, that stuff was always so wild to me. It is like, you know, it's very easy to kind of find the magicians of the world and pick on them. But it's like, well, what did you do this weekend? Oh man, I studied fantasy football. I read all of the blogs. I got up to date. I read my tier lists. I min-maxed my team. I took a stinker tinker, and then I watched 14 hours of dudes going out and wrestling each other. It was fucking great. Fucking nerd. You're a fucking nerd. You just picked a different game. Oh my gosh. Can't see the forest for the trees sometimes. Just a different game, buddy. We can say stuff like that. I'm a fantasy football enthusiast. We've got a Chiefs shirt on today, so if we aren't out here playing children's card games, then we're probably just watching football and playing fantasy football. So got it all covered. All right, back to action though. Up against Jax Ornn, we can take the tiny spear. There's a lot of games you'll find where you actually want to take that shield. It's felt like much less relevant in this deck than compared to the Jinx deck. With the Jinx deck, you have just kind of like a lot more discard fodder, and so it feels like much more frequently you're just picking the card from the Squire to just be discarding on the next turn. But excuse me, there are definite relevant times to where you want this to actually be the shield. Just gonna pass. Curious if he actually attacks with the Jax. It does give us the chance. I don't want to like overbank super hard this turn, and so I think this is probably a pretty reasonable lightning rush. It's going to try and take the Jax down off of the board. It should be a safe block, right? If he has some rando combat trick, our Squire is still going to return to hand, and he's not going to get to deal any damage. So that's all well and good. Now we can get our friends back on board. I think we still want to keep going with the spears. He picks up a fearsome equipment or something. It's nice to be able to come in and get those blocks. All right, Arena Promoter, who you got for us? It's interesting. I don't think we want Smash and Dash in this one. I'm kind of leaning towards this Shadow Tech Walker. I feel like the way that this is quickly going to happen is he's going to play like a combat cook, and we just can't win a combat against it. And then we can look to just maybe get some of this chip damage in through the Elusives. Look at that! Look at that! Everything coming together, right? he takes the fearsome equipment that we were talking about. It's all coming together. I don't think we care just yet. We'll hang on to the spear for the moment, but if he gets a scary dude on board, it's probably not going to happen, right? I mean, we can look to just put the damage onto our Elusives at this point.
A broken thing is a waiting thing.
Alright, I think we can probably stop there. The thing I'm kind of worried about with this board is going to be a fish fight, right? I don't want to block with the Shadow Tech Walker and then just have it get fish fought. That's kind of awful. And Trancing Lure does the same thing, but not able to get out of it. Probably just dead at this point. We were pretty all in on that Elusive unit, getting to shut down some combats and get some damage in. Just drew too much ferocious fluff in this one. Oh shit, wrong card. There's the Teemo. We'll see. Maybe we'll pick up a good draw. Hit a combat cook of our own. Nope. Did not happen. So I'm kind of leaning to just trying to take this Jayce off of the board, or this Jax off of the board. Can put Spear onto Yordle Squire, hook the Jax, and then try and Electro Harpoon away the Castaway. This is completely fine. Teemo wasn't doing shit. Still trying to envision how we're going to win this game, but it's at least a start. Too much fluff. Too much fluff. This is the scary point as well, is like you get into these combats and you're like the singularness that Ornn can come down with and just take over the game. so incredible compared to what a ferocious Floofs can do. Now, granted, the Floofs really want to have a full board when those things are happening, and so it's a bit of a different comparison. But you know, as we're kind of like looking at that space of our hand to where it's like, okay, I need like one really good and scary card to come in and take over this game. That's what Ornn can do. The ferocious Floofs don't really have that, aspect of themselves. All right, another round of Jax Ornn. All right, the wrench turned up. I don't really want to keep the Electro Harpoon, though. I think we want to find the units, but it is one of our few ways to take down Jax. We can keep opponent from just ramping up in the early game. Maybe it'll work out okay.
Another day in the field.
Alright, so on this turn, we will be safe to add the Yordle Squire, right? If opponent plays Jax, they're never going to block. And then if they have the 2-3, the Forge Maiden, whatever she's called, then we're still safe to just attack with Teemo, right? He's never going to have a way to interact with this Teemo. So we got a chance to get these extra damages in. I'm ready to harpoon. Bringing it. See if he's got that combat trick to make this nasty. This is pretty good for us if he doesn't. It's a pretty big tempo play to get this Jax off of the board. Nice. Oh boy. Coming in with the favorite artisan, huh? she says, I can battle. I can swing. Alright, let's see what we can do with Combat Cook. Gonna quick attack is the one that we'd really be looking for here. Found it with the Fixing 5000, good stuff. Just lets us attack into pretty much anything the deck has. There's no way for them to play a unit that the Combat Cook can't attack into. So he might be tempted to just block with the favorite artisan and then re-equip that Light of Acathia somewhere else, but like as this game progresses, all of his units should be coming down with an equipment already, and so
Never know what hit him.
I think it's good.
You'll ruin the work.
Sure. So how do we want to go about this turn? We have a couple of options, right? We can just put the Fixin' 5000 onto Teemo. It's going to put the Returno Wrench into our hand, and then we can Electro Harpoon away the wrench. That's what I'm kind of leaning towards. It's pretty slow, but I think kind of like that last game, we're pretty all in on Teemo at this point. So giving him a little bit of extra stats doesn't hurt. It's where it's going to be going next round anyways.
Please tell us a story.
The spirit of the mountain was working at his forge.
So what's going to happen here? He plays the Weaponsmith's Apprentice, so he's most certainly going to add another unit behind. I'm kind of leaning towards, like, his attack with the Castaway sucks, right? We can just block it with the Yordle Squire. I think we want to just take down this Weaponsmith's Apprentice. He's going to be following up with a, like another Combat Cook or an Innovative Blacksmith, and so I think this is fine. Like, if we're going to be dealing ground-based combat damage this game, the only way it's going to happen is through this Impact Wrench anyways, and so I think that was a pretty reasonable takedown. I mean, I guess we can hit Overwhelm with the Blacksmith and hit for 2 points of damage. His board is pretty low health at this stage. Let's see what turns up. Pot of Pain. Alright. Similar thing that it does. It's just gives us that point of impact damage. No! God damn it. God damn it. They just have the only answers. The only answers. That's how we got savaged last game as well. All right, Dak, you got to serve us up something good. We need it. Need it bad. Where's your Floofs? You're not it. You're not what we were looking for. I think we're stuck just opening though. Well, maybe not. This is our last turn to really pull something off. So let's do this. Let's add in the Yordle Squire. As it stands, his board doesn't kill anything that we have. So we might be able to like drop the Fix and 5,000 and get some good attacks in here. I'd say especially depending on the type of equipment he adds to the board. So it's a little unfortunate how slow this is going to be, right? We can play the Fix and 5,000 onto the dude, and then if we want to fish fight, we can't replay the equipment. Kind of sucks. We just can't lose any units this turn, right? We have to get maximum value out of these Floofs.
Ready, Hammer?
Clumsy work. Stories untold.
All right, we'll try to zing this combat cook now. If we do make it to 2 turns from now, we might be able to pull something off. Right, it's not... Ornn isn't a scary blocker. Ornn's a scary attacker, and so if we survive next turn, we might be able to get enough impact on board and enough wiggle room to fight through this. God damn. Have you all been to this website? It's www.haveitall.com. I think that's where opponents been visiting recently. I think that's where they've been. Haveitall.com. Oh, Jesus. Okay. Arena Promoter was a pretty choice draw. That was basically as good as we could ask for here. Gives us the chance for two equipment, or I guess 2 keyworded units. Oh my god, and he goes for the double. Oh, I don't know about that, friend. Going for the double Shepherd's Authority when your Ornn isn't flipped. That's an interesting take. We can just block Ornn with our 2/1. So let's see. Let's discard the Returno Wrench. We need something that we can play this turn, right? So the Trumpet Techer's off the table. As far as these other ones go, might as well just take the Fury Horn Crasher, right? If we build up one big gigantic unit, he's just going to block it. So we need to spread out our damage as much as we can.
Somebody hold my beer.
Defensive stance.
Can we just lethal off of an open?
You wanted the
I mean,
god of
the way that this game's gone, he's just going to harsh wins us next turn, right? But we just need 2 more damage on this board, and then we can Tiny Spear next turn. We can open with Tiny Spears next turn as well. I mean, he can block. He went with the Shepherd's Authority for whatever reason. Maybe he just doesn't know how the Ornn works. This is somebody at Platinum at this point. If you're not familiar with Ornn, I'm just going to re-equip out of that space. Okay, I was going to say, if you're not familiar with Ornn, when he comes down on board, you either pick a unit on board, or you come over to the right and hit the next button, or continue on button, whatever this thing is called, and that lets you switch over to the strongest equipment in hand. And strongest equipment in hand for him should have been like Combat Reel, and so wasn't necessarily having to hit that Shepherd's Authority. But pick up the Entrancing Lure now. We're going to look to hook this Castaway out of combat, get the final points of damage in with our Fury Horn Crasher. He's going to do exactly 9 in this space. So we got an angle. That's a lethal. You know, I'm sure that Harsh Winds is going to come in, because that's the way, that's just the way this game has gone. But, oof, found a way out. Nice. Oof. On to the next one. I've found in all my experience Jax Ornning, it's so tempting to pick that Shepherd's Authority so often, and it took me like, I don't know, probably 10 plus times of being like, okay, we got the Shepherd's Authority. I'm going for the stats here, and then you just like go into the next turn and you're like, I should have never done that. Like a normal person would have figured out after maybe like the second or the third time, where you're just like, I don't know, man. It's got to be pretty extenuating circumstances for me to want this Shepherd's Authority. Maybe I should choose otherwise. I've learned my lesson after turn number 2, turn number 3. Nah, it took me like 10. Just call it boomer mentality if you want. All right, let's see what we can do. We're up against Gnar Nidalee Freljord. And my thought seeing this pop up, I assumed that this was just gonna be elites that has like buried in ice in it. You know, that's the way I would probably approach this. I've done a lot of preaching over my day of the merits of playing elites, and then you look at your elites deck and say, "Hey, I'm not even playing. I'm not even playing the what's he called? The allegiance unit anymore." Like, it's just that was like the final argument that you ever had was I'm playing the allegiance unit, and so I want to play 100% Freljord. We're not really in that space anymore, right? You can branch out and play other factions in your Freljord deck. It seems like opponent's been listening to old FTP Bust. He says, I can put Freljord in my deck. Feels good. All right, a little Cithri out here doing work, though. Little Teemo doing the work. Just didn't double puff cap at this point. That's pretty good. Pretty good. All right, so what do we got here? We're gonna lose both of our units. Comeback Cook it is. Upcycled Rake. You know, it's kind of tempting, but I think we got a fish a whack here. We've already got opponent to 9. We just got to get a couple of more points of damage in. Gosh, Zingdus. That was going to be a good one. It's like between being able to overwhelm for those points of damage and then discard the Returno Wrench to get the 3-2 on board with Parts Made Whole and then having a burn spell and Electro Harpoon. A lot of options there. I think we still want to just take it now. Discard the Returno Wrench. Get our 3-2 Spear up Squire. We just need to get him to 4, right? You have 4 damage in hand.
I'm ready.
And the single combat? Okay. Not quite the single combat. This Cithri is still out here just doing the work, though, man. I came to fucking battle today. Almost there. Just need a little bit more damage. One impact will do what we need. Let's see what else happens, though. This guy got a keyword? Are you a weapon master? He is. Had to check on the Acathian Mirage.
Strike if you must.
Alright, let's just send that damage right to the faceplace. Send the Mirage back to hand. We'll replay it. Next turn we can load it up with a fluff or something.
The Ikathun are born weapon
Try
in
and
hand.
finish it off. Don't have to worry about champion strength at this point. There we go. Both of our bros have impact.
The finest Demosian steel.
It's got to make it to next turn. I think we're okay. If he wants to champion strength, we got the way around it, so just a little bit too slow.
Reporting in.
Rip. We got him. GG. Oof. It was a bit of an awkward draw from opponent. In my opinion, one of the most absolute underrated decks in this meta is Garen Bard, and it's one of those things. I've had this theory for a long time to where people just don't play these good decks because they're old, right? And so like Scouts never gets the amount of play that it should be seeing because you know it's just been in the meta for like 2.5, 3 years, and people just don't want to play it anymore. I think that's the kind of same spot that the Garen is in. But the kind of next step with Garen as well is that people try to big brain the world and don't like to give the elites deck respect. You know, you're kind of like, oh, you're playing elites. Must be some kind of new person. You gotta play something with some thought to it, like a Karma Set. You know, I have the biggest brain in the world. I play Karma Set. And so I think it just doesn't get the respect it deserves in that way either. All right. Into battle. Maj Attack has really been hyping up Samira Fizz. I don't have the... it's like the thing to me with Samira Fizz is we've been in this kind of spot over... you know, the past 3 or 4 months to where it's just the best deck in the format. But I never really took the time to learn Samira Fizz, and it was one of these spots where I just didn't want to sit around and play mirror matches against people like Maj Attack that are A, just better than me, and B, have played the mirror match like 1,000 times. And and so it's been kind of rough for me. It's one of these decks I still kind of look to pick up in this current format. Like, this might be something we look to take to the World's Open qualifier here in the next in the next bit of time, but I haven't quite decided. Alright, it's tempting to drop one of these tiny spears down, but like as you can see with that last turn, you can see some of the value in having those 3 attack units on the board. We had the choice to either just load the spear up onto a Yordle Squire and block his unit, or we could have we could have looked to just play the Electro Harpoon like we did, but this is another one of these spots to where, you know, you have a little bit of potential to interact with a Fearsome. Now with this, kinda sucks. I think he's probably just gonna pass the turn here, but like I don't think just discarding Parts Made Whole is the real way to be taking over the game on that turn. Not a bad draw with Combat Hook though. We could take the rake. Like, none of his units should be able to kill our stuff, and having like a double challenger attack this turn with Combat Cook's quite good. So I'm curious to see if he does come out and drop a pirouette. He doesn't, so we'll try and take down Inferno first. That's enough. GG. On to the next one. The final one, battle number 8. Feels good being able to get the full 8 games in. We'll probably play some kind of nonsensey Shadow Isles deck to take up the last 20 minutes here, but see what we can do. All right, and the Elusives. So many flavors of Teemo running around these days. I'm curious if we want to actually keep Lightning Rush in this match. I don't think we do. Like, it seems kind of tempting in the sense that, you know, your opponent's playing like all of these really small units, and it's nice to be able to have the answer to Teemo or whatever like tiny elusive they play on the first turn of the game. But those aren't the elusives that you actually care about, right? The way that this deck typically functions, or the elusives that matter, are the ones to where you've played Purifying Flames on the 2 units in your hand, and then you're playing like the 4/4 or 5/5 whatever sized elusives at that point. And I just don't think that like that slow removal spell is ever going to kill a unit that's relevant. As our opponent puts Esmith on the board. let's just go ahead and get that dum-dum out of here. This is a little too much for me. Again, this is another spot. We mentioned it earlier. This isn't a Teemo deck. It is nice to get some of that incidental damage coming out of the Teemo, but this is an Elusives deck. Teemo is not like central to this deck's success, and so it's not upsetting in the sense that
Looking for a hero?
we killed the Esmith in place of Teemo. We actually probably over the course of the game take less damage that way.
Got more scars than years, and got a lot of years.
Okay.
Can't win 'em all.
Can't win them all. That's right, Jax. That's right. Poor guy. Interesting. We get a real quick attack in with that parts made hole. Can't interact with any of these dum-dums. I'm just going to go ahead and pass. There's like a 0% chance he doesn't attack here. But there's no reason to advertise that we don't have any cards. Now I'm going to look to combat cook. Do we ever want a combat reel on this? Doubt it. Just get the damage with Fish of Whack. We're in this like odd spot to where we really need to win the game on this attack, but we can't really do it. Like with opponent coming at us for 6, very easy for him to come up with 5 damage next turn that we can't interact with. But I mean, that is at least some of the positivity in playing the parts made whole, in that if we get to dig for one of our electro harpoons or something, we may be able to take off Teemo or something. We found a Teemo of our own. How greedy do we want to be with this? I think we're not going to play Teemo right now. He can't get involved in this combat, but we'll play him after combat. Not quite a lethal attack, but he's going to at least block the Acathian Mirage with the Shade Stalker. The thing that looks suspicious with us attacking like this is we didn't play any Tiny Spears, right? You probably look to Tiny Spear the Yordle Squire or something. That's a really big point of damage we could try and punch in. Holy shit, he's blocking with the Shade Stalker. He has to have a Pale Cascade or something in hand. You don't throw away your big elusives at this point. Has to be a trick. Two tricks. I think that's kind of okay. It's limiting the amount of the amount of damage he's able to do next turn. So say he makes his open attack on us, that's 4 damage, or at least 2 damage that he can't attack through with combat tricks. Now that he has the second elusive, he can get more damage in, but it's okay.
Forgive me.
Block that Shade Stalker. I can't get my block in here fast enough. He's got a Hush. Okay. GG. Ooh, that's close. I thought we were going to be able to pull that one out. Curious when that Hush came in. But nonetheless, good set of games. We can pull this up, talk about it a little bit more. And yeah, you know, I think a lot of the merits of this deck showed through in these games, right? We had a lot of really important spaces and important games to where Arena Promoter and Squeaker and the generated Mecha Yordles really performed. The Combat Cook did quite a bit of work as well. But to me, you have to kind of start asking yourself the question, would I rather just play Jinx with these other Bandle City cards, or should I really be playing the Jinx deck that plays the Boom Baboon and the discard stuff and all of that? And that's the place that, you know, takes a little bit more work for me. I haven't quite decided if, you know, how deep you're looking to go in terms of, say, like playing Kennen and things like that. But I think we really got to kind of showcase, at least to me, what the kind of main difference stylistically is in playing the Jinx version of the deck that has the much more aggressively based offerings, and playing decks like this to where you're using more so the value-based units and having a higher impact collection of cards as opposed to playing a faster collection of cards. And so it's tough. You know, there's not a lot of space in the game to where you do better by doing things in the middle, right? And so if you're playing an aggro deck, you typically want to be super aggressive. If you're playing a control deck, you want to be as slow as you can be without just getting completely run over by things like Jinx. And you find very few spaces as to where you go, I just want to be in the middle. It doesn't turn up that often, and so that's where I kind of worry about playing a deck like this. Is you are saying, okay, well, I want to be kind of in the middle, and that's where you run into the decks like Ornn that are just able to completely crush you because they are playing a little bit more towards the control end than the middle, and their units are all just bigger than yours, and it's really tough to actually kind of fight against those decks. And so as we're kind of like talking, you're like, well, we're not good against Ornn, and we're not good against things like Elusive. Well, what are we actually good against? And that's that's a good and valid question that I don't exactly have the answer to. And so to me, there might be something here. I think if you're really looking towards this deck, it's because you're trying to play a triple Returno Wrench deck in the upcoming open event. I think the big problem we ran into here with this deck today was the ferocious fluffs just weren't very good, and it's like I try to kind of keep in the back of my head that the fluffs exist, and it's something to where we need to build up board for, and so we don't really want to be trading our units away, but we never really ran into the spot to where that was actually something that we were able to do. And so, that was a big kind of pain point for me was the fluffs weren't good. We never ran into any of those highlight reel style plays where we're able to go big with the fluffs, and I'm not certain what it would take to be able to get more units on board for them, at least with this style of deck, right? Typically, when you're playing one of these really kind of go wide enabled style cards, you play additional summon things. So in Vandal City, you play something like Nora. If you're playing with Bilgewater, you play the various unit summoners like Mirai Warden. You aren't playing a curved deck like this, where you play a Squire on 1, a Squeaker on 2, a Blacksmith on 3, a Mecha Yordle on turn 4. That's just like as one unit gets removed, you don't have the opportunity to get that full board for the ferocious fluffs. But interesting stuff, interesting deck. There's certainly some power to it. We took it to a winning record, and so it should be good enough for you to climb to Masters if you really like to play Teemo or Jax or the Electro Wrench, whatever. There's some opportunities there. I'm just saying that if you're looking for this deck on the ladder, probably not your best choice, but there may be something here for best of 3. And so, good stuff. I had fun with that. Hope you did too, because that is going to do it for us today. And so, hope everyone enjoyed the video. Hope you maybe learned a thing or two along the way. You had a good time watching. This is Bustin'. We thank you for being here.